Look, I'm going to be real here. I don't like Pyro. Whether playing him or going up against him, I've yet to find a way that I enjoy the class. Before I start talking about Pyro himself, I do want to lay some groundwork so that we're all on the same page. When I talk about a skill floor, I'm talking about how much effort a player has to put into the class to make an impact in the game. A majority of the classes actually don't need too much effort to be put into them to make somewhat of an impact while playing, which I think is great. It allows lower skilled players to help their team. Even if it's only a kill or two, they've helped out. An example of this is Sniper, which a lot of people think has a higher skill floor than some of the other classes, but people don't realize you can just sit crouched in a corner, fully charge body shot people, and get a few solid picks. Whether or not you like to get body shot doesn't change the fact that little Timmy over there, who just got the game for Christmas, has made some kind of an impact. But when we start to look at a class's skill ceiling, that's when stuff starts to get interesting. See, a skill ceiling is the highest potential skill that a class has, and thankfully, a majority of the classes have a crazy high skill ceiling. Look at some of the highlight reels for tournaments. You can see how much those players have pushed their classes to the limits. It's cool to see all these players show off that these classes can technically have an infinite skill ceiling. You can always be improving at a class. Doesn't matter if you've put in 200 or 2,000 hours, there's always something to get better at. Cool. Now that we got that out of the way, we can finally get to the main point of the video. The floor for Pyro is obviously pretty low. If you've played a single match of TF2, there's a good chance that you saw a player type W plus M1 into chat. The famous expression comes from the fact that players tend not to view Pyro as a skilled class, and all they have to do is hold those two buttons together and wiggle the mouse around. This is an indirect way of saying that the skill floor of the class is too low, which is kind of true. You do see players mindlessly running at people and getting results, which can only be a bad thing that will impact the rest of the way they learn the game. If they're getting results by doing that on Pyro and switching to another class and trying the same strategy, they will have a much lesser chance of getting the same results. So what would the skill ceiling even look like for this class? Is it doing sick jumps with the detonator? Flanking with the backburner and getting that much needed pick? Or is it just sitting there, spamming a scorch shot and making sure nothing touches the med or sentry?
Pyro!
Well, unfortunately, Occam's razor tells us that often the most simple explanation tends to be correct. Sure, Pyro can do cool stuff, don't get me wrong here. Watching any kind of Pyro frag video can show you that the Pyro does have some neat tricks tucked up his sleeves. Suit? Gloves? Whatever. Plus, a knowledge on how the flamethrower generates flames and how to use it most effectively to secure a kill does take a bit of knowledge and know-how. But if you watch Sketchek talk about the flamethrower, you know that in practice, flailing your mouse in the general direction tends to be your best bet.
I had another think about the new damage changes and have come to the conclusion that you could probably use a few more tweaks than I originally thought. I still think they were on the right track, but maybe missed the mark on the implementation. In theory, a damage ramp up would be a good way to encourage accuracy, but in practice, it seems to be just as, if not more effective, to just spray in the general direction of the enemy and hope for the best.
While these Pyros are doing some crazy shenanigans, what's their impact on the game itself? Does standing on a ledge for multiple minutes, waiting for the right time to strike, actually help the team? Or would it just be better to WM1 some people, either kill them or force them back to a resupply, making sure that they can't contribute to the frontline fight? But what about reflex and air blasting? You haven't mentioned those at all, I hear you ask. Yeah, you. When it comes to reflecting projectiles, it requires input from the enemy to pull off. If the enemy never shoots a projectile at you, then your skill at reflecting doesn't matter anymore. The enemy has to not respect your skill of reflecting in order to reflect. And if they do respect your skill, well, they either pull out a his scan weapon and use that instead, or just simply leave the fight and let somebody else deal with it. I know something like this will never happen because of the nature of TF2, and heck, the amount of times I've shot projectiles at Pyro without caring if they can reflect or not is way too high for me to count. The skill that comes with aiming a projectile, I'll bundle with the learning of that class instead. In order to understand the best place to aim or the speed of the projectile is to play said class. On the other side of air blasts is, well, air blasts. Honestly, there isn't much here to talk about. A majority of the time it's, oh, do you see somebody on fire? Press mouse 2 on them. Or, is a shiny person walking up to your team? Just press mouse 2. The information that is needed can be learned and drilled into a new player in less than an hour, with similar results as to somebody that has put more time into the class than they have. With all this talk of problems and issues, it would be foolish of me not to offer up some kind of solution to this. There is a problem. I don't have any. I can't think of a way to change up the class enough to create a higher skill ceiling. The flamethrower itself works as it should, outside of tweaking damage numbers and how hitboxes are spawned and controlled. I can't think of something that will keep the spirit of Pyro and be a change I'll be happy with. I guess this sums up my thoughts on the class. Oh, would you look at that? I won a free ticket to rant about some of the stuff I want to bring up without being nice. Neat. Yeah, that. How does something like this get into the game? A weapon like this only drags the skill floor down and rewards a player for not aiming and just shooting at a choke point and having dopamine activate whenever they see damage number go up. Not to mention that all flare guns for some reason do full afterburn duration, because the last thing you want to happen is to not nearly kill a player off on one random AoE attack. The amount of times I've had to go back into spawn because somebody 2 galaxies over from me randomly got hit by a scorch shot is a lot. It's like a lot, I don't know. But why don't you just equip the Darwins, I hear? Well, it's because I still have flashbacks from when it was horribly broken. And I have a shiny gun. Hey, I don't know about you, but I like seeing things. It's a shame I can't sometimes. Anytime a pyro comes barreling at me, I have to use more brain power than I want to in order to see with my mind's eye where the head is. This affects more than just sniper. The new flame particles are really nice, don't get me wrong, but man, they can be hard to see through. And Dragon's Breath? Oh man, that gun can just tear through people and nests like there's no tomorrow. Slap a good pocket on a pyro that can hit those shots and boy oh boy, you can just tear through a team without a care in the world. The ability to deal more damage while being able to shoot faster after a single hit creates a monster of a weapon that is honestly not used enough, and I'm scared when it will be. Random statement here, but I don't like being hit with crowd control. Losing control of your character and being forced to watch a sad, slow death is not something that is enjoyable to most people. So why does Pyro have it? If the enemy Pyro has more than 2 brain cells to rub together, they can just shut down any kind of jump-ins by pressing mouse 2 and either reflecting the projectiles you're bombing in with, or pushing you back and leaving you out in the open for their team to pick at. If the Pyro wants to do a haha funny meme and air blast you off a cliff, what are you going to do about it? The air blast range is far enough that they can be safe and air blast you off a cliff, as you think about all the life choices that led you up to this point. Oh, look, rant time's up. Here's the deal. The real problem with Pyro is the skill ceiling. It's far too close for the Pyro to be seen in a good light by the community. There are outstanding players that are taking the class to its limit. For a majority of the time, because of the lower skill ceiling the class has, it is doomed to forever be looked down upon. A person can only go so far with Pyro's crazy plays, because if they want to help out their team, they can only really deny other people or hold WM1, forcing backs on players. It's honestly sad to say this all for Pyro. TF2 is such a crazy game that has crazy players that hit crazy shots, a game where skill can be seemingly infinite. It's sad to see a class that does seem to have a limit.